This is Paula Harris, and you're listening to EA Radio.
Welcome to Enigmatic Anomalies, EA Radio. Tonight, we bring you the story of stories. If you've ever seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you don't want to miss this interview with Len Kasten, the author of Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. It's a true story of interplanetary travel. This book discusses the most highly compartmentalized and secret programs in our history, kept secret until now. Don't go anywhere. Get comfortable and prepare to be blown away. We'll be right back.
My name is Michael DeFoy, and I'm the lead investigator for the Seekers Paranormal Society. About 7 years ago, I had my first paranormal experience. Now armed with the latest in paranormal equipment, I'm setting out to find the truth. Joining me on my quest to capture evidence is my equipment tech Ramon Vivas and investigator Steve Welton. Take a front seat into our paranormal world as we are driven into the unknown. We are the Seekers Paranormal Society.
SeekersParanormal.com.
Welcome back to Enigmatic Anomalies. EA Radio is very proud to have Len Kasten on the line with us, who is the author of A True Story of Interplanetary Travel. And this is truly enough information in here to curl anybody's hair quite permanently. It's a science fact story, and let's get right into it. Hi, Len.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. It's so good to have you with us today. I'm really happy to be doing this interview with you. I've read your book, actually bits and pieces, because I got so excited I was going to the front and the back and the front and the back. I'm one of those.
I did put a lot of information in the appendices by necessity, but because it would have clogged up the narrative, so I can see why people would go back and forth.
Oh, it's just such an amazing story, and because I truly do believe it is science fact. Not a well-known story, not a story that, is kind of out there and people are talking about, but you had said it's number 2 on the...
Number 4.
Number 4, okay. And tell our listeners it's number 4 on what list?
On Bear & Company, which is the publisher, on their top 50 list.
That's amazing. And it's also epic, because it should be. It should be number 1, and I'm sure it will get there.
Well, interestingly enough, the 3 books ahead of it are all health-related, so it's kind of a strange situation.
Absolutely. This is so thought-provoking. It truly is. It's an incredible story of something that happened and was kind of leaked to us through the media via the movie Close Encounters, and eyes-only documents seem to back up some of the story. And I was really surprised that both the Air Force and NASA refused to be a part of that movie. It was a huge grosser. I guess it was something like $300 million, and for back in that day, that was big money.
Yeah, it was. That was an all-time big movie, all right, and it's continued to be a classic.
That's amazing. Now, you did have a Serpo website, correct? Or someone had a Serpo website. Is that still up and running?
It's still there. It's still there, and it's being embellished and improved by various people who are sending in information. So it's still out there. And interestingly enough, Anonymous, who started this website back in 2005, is still making contributions. So he's still alive.
Ah, interesting. And now, can you share with people how to get to that?
Yeah, www.serpo.org.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
There's 3,000 pages of information. 3,000 pages of information out there, so it's a lot to go through. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book, was to encapsulate a lot of this and boil it down.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessary.
Well, there's so many things to start this interview with. I don't almost know where to start. One thing that really is exciting is the propulsion systems that you talk about, how the pilots that were, I guess we're going to call them EBINs, became part of the vehicle's electrical circuitry. I mean, that's some pretty amazing stuff. So that's
Philip Corso wrote the book the day after Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
Said that they came to that same conclusion even before he wrote his book in 1997,
mm-hmm.
that there was a definite electrical connection between the participants and the craft itself. So that seems to be confirmed.
Well, I tend to believe that simply because I had an experience in Florida when I was younger in 1979, and the craft that I saw was like nothing on Earth. It seemed like it was almost a silver liquid. Now, in 1979, none of these stories were out there, and I was trying to wrap my mind around something that I was seeing, and this was just an amazing sight to behold. It changed my life permanently, but I was looking for rivets, I was looking for doors, I was looking for windows, and those would have been the normal things for anybody to see on any type of known craft. And of course, there was nothing like that. This craft actually had different types of blue lights running along the edge of it. And, I felt like it was communicating with me. The ship itself,
yeah, exactly.
Because I didn't see anybody standing on the outside at first, but I did notice something later. And so a lot of the things that I read in your book really kind of brought some validity to what my experiences were.
Right.
And I do believe that it was a telepathic type of movement, that this thing was doing. And it's like you said, it's like moving muscles that they fly with these elaborate crafts. It's like it becomes a part.
And as far as not having windows goes, one of the early contactees, I can't recall his name, but it is in my other book, The Secret History of Extraterrestrials, was able to see right through the craft while he was on board. Even though it appeared to be a solid metal, they could see perfectly through it from the inside. So that might explain why there are no windows in some of these craft.
Exactly. So they travel through time, but not as we see it, and they're not bound by the physics that we are bound by. They're able to displace gravity through propagation of magnetic waves. This is really mind-bending information. But I've talked with others who totally agree and said that when they were on board their ship, that's how they moved. Now, I told you earlier that when I was on my ship, I was standing in front of it, and it was like glass in front of me. And as I went through space, I could see the stars and things shooting past me at such an incredible rate of speed. And I thought to myself, why am I not like in that G-force mode? Why aren't my lips like wrapping around the back of my head, or my hair going straight back? And I was like in a perfect temperature. And so this is why I so believe in all these things that you've stated, because I've personally experienced them.
Yeah. That was in 1979, you said?
It was, uh-huh.
How long were you on the craft?
I have no idea. None whatsoever, because it happened in the middle of the night I was taken. And it was a different visitation than the one where I saw the craft. It was after I had seen the craft. Then I had hundreds of different involvements with abductions and contact and that sort of thing. And I just always felt like they were guiding me, leading me, talking to me, and I pretty much ignored it all. So I don't think they were real happy with me, because I wasn't actually somebody that went along with it, But anyway, enough about me. Tell me, what do you think, in your mind, is the most amazing thing about all of this? Are you a contactee?
Well, I had an experience way back. I was in the Air Force that I think did change things in my subconscious and changed the path of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no conscious memory of it. But I do remember seeing the craft and then being deposited back into my barracks room at the Air Force and then running to the window to watch it until it disappeared out over the Gulf of Mexico. So I think pretty sure I was taken on board, but I have no idea what really happened. And I should get hypnotized to find out, but I haven't done that.
And I'm sorry, what year was that?
That was in the 60s.
Oh, in the 60s. Okay, and you were in Florida in the 60s.
Yeah, northern Florida, that's right.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Florida's a hotbed to this minute.
Yeah, this was at Eglin Air Force Base.
Oh, at Eglin, okay. Mm-hmm, up in the Pensacola area.
Work. Yeah.
So, okay. And you talk about Anonymous. So you actually don't know who he is.
No, I don't, but he gives a lot of big clues to who he is in the book, on the website, by mentioning the fact that he was a senior member of the intelligence hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
He had to be because he was in charge of the Red Book. I explained the Red Book,
mm-hmm.
which is a book of all of our contacts with extraterrestrials since 1947.
Mm-hmm. That is
and if he was the editor of that book, and he was in charge of briefing sitting presidents on what was in the book, then he must be very high up in the hierarchy.
So in the parts of the book that I've read, I have never seen you name him or give a name to him.
Well, he's never identified himself.
He's never. Okay, even
No.
to this point, yeah. And
No,
it would probably be dangerous to some degree to say.
Well,
who
he chooses
was.
not to. He chooses not to, and we respect his desire for confidentiality. That's all.
Yeah. So do I.
Nobody has pushed it. Nobody has really pushed it, and so he remains anonymous.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into the meat of anything else, let's hear from one of our sponsors, the UFO Store.
4,734 UFO sightings in 2007. 854 abductions by aliens or unknown species reported by American and British citizens. Pressed information about collisions with passenger aircraft and UFOs that has been kept from the public knowledge for years. And only one trusted source on information from some of the top UFO researchers in the world. Exclusive information that cannot be found anywhere else on the planet. Trusted, connected, accurate. TheUFOstore.com. Expand your personal library with fast shipping and instant downloadable information from the largest selection of UFO products on the internet by going to theufostore.com or call on the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week order line at 541-523-2630. The truth is out there, and theufostore.com has it.
Welcome back to Enigmatic Anomalies Radio. Again, we've got Len Kasten on the line, and he is the author of A True Story of Interplanetary Travel. This is an amazing book. It's all around the planet Serpo and a visit that was made to it, and it has a lot to do with the Close Encounters movie. I'd like for you, Len, to just share with our listeners what exactly Serpo is. You and I are well versed in it, but they may not be.
Well, it's a planet in a distant star system, it's Zeta Reticuli, which is about 39 light years here from our solar system. And it's in the same kind of a zone around that planet, that star, as we are around ours. So it's very similar to our planet in terms of the amount of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon in the atmosphere. And in terms of its mass, it's about the same size. One of the major differences is that it has two stars, so it has two suns in the sky, and it's very hot in the equatorial region. Other than that, it's very similar, and our people who went there were able to breathe the air without difficulty and were able to live on the planet for that period of time, which was 13 years. So it's probably one of billions of planets just like it, and we're starting to discover them now through our powerful telescopes, particularly the one in Chile. The Gemini telescope in Chile is now zeroing in on planets that are trillions of miles away. So we're starting to understand now that there's probably life on all of these planets, and the one we went to, Serpo, is just one of probably billions. And we established a relationship with the inhabitants of that planet. We call them the Evans. They have a civilization on that planet. There are about 650,000 of them, so it's a small population. They had a devastating war in their history that wiped out a large part of their population. But we have become very friendly with them. We've established diplomatic relations with them, and we now have a very, very rewarding relationship with them. And since that first visit in 1965, they have been back here 10 times since then. And we have introduced many other nations to them, including the Russians and the Chinese and even the Vatican. So it's an ongoing thing, and it all started in 1965 with that voyage that was depicted in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Monsignor Corrado Balducci is the one who is no longer alive, but he is someone who was aware of all of this, and
yes, he was. That's right. But there are still many others in the Vatican who are aware of what's going on with this.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the Pope himself.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading in your book talking about the planet itself that an animal was found that was very similar to the armadillo, and it was very docile. I guess this was something that was really wonderful. And they also named a quadrant that they had habitated, or am I saying that right? As Little Montana. I guess they found trees that were similar to evergreens and things like that. Exactly. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, when they landed on the equatorial zone, and the heat was unbearable. It was reaching, I think, as far as 140 degrees Fahrenheit. They had to spend a lot of time underground, and they were given an underground habitation by the Evans. Mm-hmm. But eventually they ended up living in that northern quadrant. And the Evans built them a special community up there, mm-hmm. where they could live and be comfortable up there, and that's where they ended up spending the last 7 years of their habitation. They were there for a total of 13 years.
Right, because there was some problem with our time versus their time and that sort of thing. And
yeah, our people lost track of Earth time. They didn't know how much time was elapsing on Earth, so they didn't know when to go back.
You had to wonder if they cared.
Well, yeah, two of them remained there. So two of the astronauts decided to stay there, and they did.
So a question I would have had would have been, are the two that are there, do we know if they're still alive, or have they passed on, or does being on Serpo do anything to us? I've read that the ones that come back have a lot of damage because of the radiation that is on Serpo.
That's right.
So how is it affecting them there in their element?
Well, there was a communications device between Serpo and Earth, and the last we heard of the two that remained was in 1988. We haven't heard anything since then. Mm-hmm. Our people returned. 7 of our people returned in 1978. And communications with the 2 that remained behind continued until 1988. And after that, we don't know what happened to them.
Now, as far as you know, was there ever any need for guns on Serpo? Was it like it is here?
Our people did not notice any weaponry at all.
Okay.
None of the Evans carried weapons. But it was what I would call a police state, nevertheless.
Okay.
Because they were very highly regimented and required to do certain things at certain times of the day. But we never saw any guns in evidence. However, we knew that they had powerful weaponry. We knew that already.
So, gosh, sounds like a great place. When's the next bus leaving?
It wasn't what we would call a beautiful civilization. No, it wasn't. but they were very friendly and very kind and compassionate people. And they treated our people very nicely for the whole period of time that they were there.
Well, here's a crazy question for you, and you may not know this, but what's their belief system? Where are they on the faith and understanding, and do they recognize God, a supreme being?
They do have a sort of an entity that they call the Creator or Divine Creator. I can't recall. Very much like our concept of God, and they do believe in reincarnation and the soul. Actually, they have a lot in common with the Catholic belief system. That's why the Catholics were so delighted with this connection, because they were very pleased to find out that the Ebens do have sort of a similar theology.
Interesting. Well, the word Catholic means Christian, so obviously they have a similar belief. I guess the only thing that would really differentiate the Catholics is that they have a purgatory. So are we thinking that they're believing something on that vein, that there's some holding place between life and death?
They didn't speak of that, no, but I have a chapter on their belief system in my book, on the chapter Feast, Fun, and Death, talk about their belief system. And no, there's no talk of purgatory, just the fact that soul survives leaving the physical body, or they call it the container, really.
Right.
Consider the body to be a container.
Absolutely. It is. We know it to be a carcass. Once we're in it, it's our,
exactly.
Once we're in it, it's our body. When it's gone, it's burnt and or buried, and it's not of any use any longer. So they're absolutely right. It is a container. And that's another thing that brings my personal belief into Serpo and what's going on there, in that I've had experiences where I've left my body. They've come and taken me, and for whatever reason, my body was left on this particular visit, and I did not want to come back, and really fought hard to stay where I was.
Yeah,
and,
well, that's common. That's a common event. That happens. A lot of people have reported saying that same thing.
Mm-hmm. And they were very clear that I had to. This was not up for discussion. That you have to come back. And once I saw my body there, it looked almost dead. It was almost ashen. But then when I said, I don't know how to go back, and he said, the same way you came out. And I said, well, I don't remember how I came out. You called me, I came. And he said, through your mouth. And at that point, my body on the bed opened its mouth, and he put me in through my mouth, and I put my body on like a glove. And I kept thinking to myself, this is nothing more than a gravity carcass. It's held on the earth, and I'm put in it. It's just something I'm wearing. So we really are spiritual beings on a human journey.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of people have reported that, so it's a very common story, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Now, another question I had was about the photographs, but we do have to take a quick break again, and let's do that, and stay with us. We will be right back with more from Len Kasten.
For hundreds of years, those that have been curious enough to look to the stars in search of something beyond ourselves have been shunned, persecuted, and laughed at. Now, it's time for those curious few to laugh back. Saucer Seekers is a hilarious online comic strip that takes a humorous look at our world of disinformation while facing everyday life from the point of view of those who devote their lives to the search for the truth. The Saucer Seekers! TheSaucerSeekers.com.
Welcome back. This is some riveting testimony from the author of this amazing book. I'm not kidding. Secret Journey to Planet Serpo We're with Len Kasten, and it just keeps getting better. There's so many questions that I'm sure our listeners have, as well as I have personally. But one that I'd like to talk about, if we could, Len, is the photographs that came back. I understand that there were many, and there are some in your book on page 199, the chapter noted as The Return. There is a sunset picture, and it does contain two suns. Is this an actual picture?
We believe it is. We believe that's the only one that's authentic, and there were some others, but we noticed some of them had discrepancies in them that may have made them photoshopped or something else. So, but this particular one we believe is authentic, yes.
So someone was actually photoshopping things?
Well, I have a whole chapter on the problems obtaining the photographs, if you recall that. They released several hundred photographs, but after evaluating them, our military people who looked at them said that they didn't have enough confidence in them to believe that they were real. So evidently they've been trying to mask the photographs. And they took 3,000 photographs on Serpo, and all of them are in a vault at Bowling Air Force Base in Washington. So they're there, and it's a question of getting them released. And once those photographs are released, of course, it will create a sensation because that's the final step in proving this story. And I think that will happen. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put in a Freedom of Information Act request to get those photographs if I can, or at least some of them. But right now we don't have them.
Okay. Now, another question that has just mind-boggled me is that they have technology where they can actually see past events. And does that also mean they can see future events?
Well, we don't know about the future, but the past events, they do have that capability to have photographic evidence of past events. Now, how they achieved that, we don't know, but when they first arrived here in 1964, they gave us a gift called the Yellow Book. Mm-hmm. The Yellow Book was a history of the universe, literally, and it wasn't really a book. It was like a book, but when you opened it, the imagery came right out, like holographic imagery, and you saw the actual events, and the words spoken were in whatever language you were able to understand. So it was a remarkable piece of technology that they gave to us when they landed back at Holloman Air Force Base in April of 1964. And then we learned later that, and they claimed that they knew all about our past, mm-hmm. and some of the photographs in the book were of deep history going back 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how they do that, but maybe by now we've figured it out. I don't know.
Well, this is a crucial point in validation for me because, I'm just your normal, average, everyday person. But however, in 1971, I was babysitting a young girl who had was playing with my wallet, and my wallet was on a kitchen table, and she started saying to me, "Oh, look, I see you in the car." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I'm looking at your license." And my license became a device where this child could actually see a past event that had happened about 4 months earlier. Okay. And she was describing it to me, and I said to her, and this was a very peculiar child, I might say. She kind of gave me the creeps because she did look a little odd, but she was telling me something and that I needed to move on from it. And she described the inside of my car, the color, the type, that I had a blue racing stripe on it. She said, and I mean, this is just a little girl that I was babysitting in New York, and I had left Florida. So I do believe in this type of technology, and I really.
How old was the girl?
She was about, I'm going to say, 6 to 8 years old. I don't remember right now because that was 1970.
Did you
71.
happen to watch 60 Minutes last Sunday?
No, I did not.
They had these people on who had explicit memories of exact dates and times going back 20, 30 years. And when they described the memory itself, they gave the date and the time, and also the feeling. They were reliving the whole feeling. They have identified about 100 of these people who have this kind of memory. Wow. And you ask them about what happened on a particular date, they can tell you, or you give a date and they'll tell you what happened on that date. And they're just ordinary people. One of them was a 10-year-old boy. It's an amazing story.
Yes, I've never shared that story actually with anybody ever, because it just, to me, it seemed so ridiculous. And so it was something I've just pondered in my heart all these years and thought, okay, I know what happened. The little girl was there. She's real. She was the neighbor's child. But so the whole idea of the Yellow Book, when I was reading about this and hearing about this, I thought, wait a minute, you know, this is real. Now, people might doubt it, but I'm here to tell you, I'm a believer, because it's not because I read it in your book, but it's because I personally experienced it. And
it's reminiscent of the information by Edgar Cayce about the Akashic Records, where people are able to go and see a past event and literally live right in that event. So apparently everything is recorded somewhere.
Right, everything is.
Is recorded somewhere, and some people have the ability to go in and tap into that information base.
Absolutely.
Like a cloud.
And that's so stunning because, you know, I grew up a Catholic. And later in my life, I'm not involved in any type of denomination, just my own personal preference, no problems with Catholicism or anything like that. But I had to relearn everything when I saw that UFO in 1979. And, you know, I think that, and remember, what I'm telling you about the little girl in New York happened in 1971. So I considered that really paranormal. They have been a part of my life my entire life. And I've always believed that things were one way. But now I'm seeing, and in your book and in Clifford Stone's book, Eyes Only, and all these different books that I'm reading, I'm seeing that we haven't really been told the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
No, of course not.
No,
of course not.
So there's a lot of things that we need to rethink, reteach ourselves, revisit, and reconsider. However, I don't know where your faith is, but it has increased mine. What has it done to you?
Well, my faith has been sort of around the Buddhist belief system. That's as close as I can get, but I do believe in reincarnation and karma, things like that.
Yeah, karma's definitely out there.
Supreme. I believe in a supreme force. I don't know how to characterize it, however, and I certainly wouldn't give it a personality. So I have no idea how it really works. But as we look out into the universe and see the amazing things that are going on there, we have to believe that whoever this creative force is, it would be really amazing to encompass all that we're able to see. For instance, it occurred to me the other day, I was just speculating about the Earth and its revolution. And, you know, it's amazing that the Earth is so precise in its revolution that, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning is 7 o'clock in the morning, period. The Earth is revolving with great, great precision. And that must be the case with all the other planets. So to have imbued the entire universe with this kind of precision would take an amazing intelligence that we couldn't possibly contemplate or even begin to figure out, you know?
It's certainly not odd to me that they're so much smarter than us, because I'm not seeing a whole lot of, you know, smart on planet Earth. And I'm not judging anybody. That's just a broad brushstroke.
You're still looking for the search. You're still in the search for terrestrial intelligence. Is that it?
Well, I'm not really sure what I'm in the search for. They seem to be searching me out. I don't seem to ever have to do anything much. But let's take a quick break again to visit our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
My name is Michael DeFoy, and I'm the lead investigator for the Secrecy Paranormal Society. About 7 years ago, I had my first paranormal experience. Now, armed with the latest in paranormal equipment, I'm setting out to find the truth. Joining me on my quest to capture evidence is my equipment tech Ramon Vivas and investigator Steve Weldon. Take a front seat into our paranormal world as we are driven into the unknown. We are the Secrecy Paranormal Society.
SecrecyParanormal.com.
For hundreds of years, those that have been curious enough to look to the stars in search of something beyond ourselves have been shunned, persecuted, and laughed at. Now, it's time for those curious few to laugh back. Saucer Seekers is a hilarious online comic strip that takes a humorous look at our world of disinformation while facing everyday life from the point of view of those who devote their lives to the search for the truth. The Saucer Seekers! TheSaucerSeekers.com.
Welcome back to Enigmatic Anomalies Radio, and we're very proud to be talking on the phone today with Len Kasten, and he, again, is the author of The Secret Journey to Planet Serpo. Now, you've written other books, though.
Well, my first book was The Secret History of Extraterrestrials, which is also by the same publisher, Bering Company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's out there also. You can get that on Amazon or through the publisher, Bering Company.
Another amazing book.
Yeah, I like that book, and it's hanging in there. It's not spectacular sales, but it's doing all right. It just stays all right. And I talk about some of the early contactees, Adamski in the 50s, and a lot of the other contacts and interesting things that have gone on with extraterrestrials in that book. But this book is about this specific journey by these 12 Americans to the distant star system.
Serpo.
Serpo.
Mm-hmm. And what can you tell me about them individually? Do you have any information individually about any of them?
They didn't give us any, really. We know a little bit about the commander. We know that he was from Colorado. He mentioned that when he said he mentioned that he had a dream about Earth when he was gone, and he dreamt of his home in Colorado. So we know that, and we think he was a colonel in the Air Force. That seems to be the case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the team was divided up as follows. There were 4 pilots, 2 scientists, 2 linguists, 2 doctors, and a security man. I believe that was it. There were 12 of them. Each had their own role to play. But we don't know anything about their past, and Anonymous was not able to give us that or didn't choose to give us that information. Presumably he has all that in this 3,000-page book that he has access to. That book was created after they debriefed the entire team for a solid year. Of the 7 who returned, the 7 people who returned, they were debriefed for a solid year, and that everything they told us was put into that 3,000-page book, and that's where all this information came from by Anonymous, because he has access to the book. So that book also is in the vault at Bowling Air Force Base, along with soil samples and video and audio recordings. So it's all there.
And at this point, all those that have come back have passed away. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the last one died in 2002 in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we know.
Do you know what city in Florida?
No, I don't. I'm trying to find that out, actually, because I've gotten phone calls from people in Florida who feel that they knew some of these people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And since they weren't named, it's just all guesswork. But I don't know what city it was. I would love to find that out.
Well, we can talk about that after this, because I have some ideas myself. But what's interesting is this was all squelched by intelligence here in the United States. It was never brought out. It sure is disappointing, I might say.
This was one of the most highly compartmentalized and secret programs in our history.
Absolutely.
It was kept very, very secret. But the people who released the information in 2005 were from the DIA,
mm-hmm.
Defense Intelligence Agency. That agency was created by President Kennedy.
Right.
And it shared a lot of his dedication to transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have this now, is because they chose to release this information. And we should thank them for that.
Absolutely. Really. Oh, absolutely. And the fact that Kennedy is, it didn't do him a whole lot of good to be a part of this. It seems to really be the conspiracy, theory is that it's the reason that he was taken down. And,
well, that's speculation.
Mm-hmm.
I speculated on that in my first book, but
mm-hmm.
I don't know. We don't know that.
We really don't. No, there were
so many other
proof.
reasons. He had so many other enemies, really, that there's no way to tell at this point.
I just hate that Oswald was screaming, "I'm a patsy." That does bother me.
I know,
But
I know,
yeah, there's no bottom line to that really at this point, but I'm sure it's all forthcoming. The truth does seem to find a way to, rise to the surface in every generation.
Well, it is interesting that he was assassinated only 4 months before the landing.
Absolutely.
By
yes.
So that's all we know. We don't know if there's any connection at all, really.
Yeah. And I'm certainly not trying to start any conspiracies, or add to them, but I'm entitled. It still is a free world. I'm entitled to my own thoughts.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
After all these years, you still can't take your thoughts away from you.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the movie, Close Encounters. That, to me, was an epic moment watching that film. I was almost ready to get up and run out of the theater when I first saw it, because when I saw the tall white, it was something that just shot right through me. And the fact that it was so ugly and oddly thin and, disturbing. And I do remember in my own personal life having contact with something very similar to that. And so I even take it with me to MUFON meetings because I am the Assistant State Director for Florida MUFON. And when I'm talking to people in the meetings about that, I show the picture of that type of alien because it's real to me. I can't...
Yeah, well, that, of course, that type of entity was not like the Evens. The Evens were short and more human-looking and had a brownish complexion, but they looked like smaller human beings than like us. They were not like the creature in Close Encounters.
That's interesting because I've actually seen something very much like that. Not that thin, but like that. And so, and of course we're on the radio, I can't draw a picture or show you what I'm thinking, but I do think that there are tall whites out there. So
tall whites are in the book. I think it was the Air Force guy. What was his name? Who had contact with the tall whites in Nevada? There is supposedly
Anthony Sanchez.
No, it was. I think it was
Philip Schneider.
No, he's written 9 books on the subject. He was in contact with them in northern Nevada. He was in the Air Force at the time, and they liked dealing with him. I'll have to send you the name of the book. I can't remember it right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I do know that Dr. Hynek was involved with some of this, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, Hynek was not really part of the information network that gave Spielberg this information. Actually, the movie was already done just about done when Hynek entered the picture. And the reason he entered the picture was because he had written a book called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He had developed that concept of the 3 types of close encounters.
Mm-hmm.
And Spielberg had named his movies Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So Hynek came into the picture because he had to give permission for the use of that name.
Oh, okay.
And once he met Spielberg liked him so much, decided to make him a consultant on the film. And he was even in the movie, actually. He was in one scene, in a cameo presentation.
Mm-hmm.
But he was not the one that gave Spielberg the information.
Uh-huh.
Because he really didn't know about this story. From my research, I came to that conclusion that whoever gave this information to Spielberg was somebody we would call a deep throat, who was probably in the DIA at the time, and gave him the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Spielberg's success with the movie Jaws gave him a high profile, and possibly this person realized that he could do a good job on the movie, and that's why he gave him the information.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I'm glad because he really is wonderful at his craft. I mean, he really knows what he's doing, and he certainly spun the story in such a way that it made everybody scratch their head. That's for sure.
Well, Ray Bradbury, the science fiction author, very famous, said this was one of the greatest science fiction movies ever made. And it's gotten a lot of accolades from everybody, and it's remained a classic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, in the book, we were talking earlier that you had the appendixes and things like that. I thought it amazing that there was such specifics given in the supplies that were, taken, the music, the clothing, the different things. Now, where was this information gleaned from? The testing equipment, all of that, even down to the medical things that they took.
We wanted to be as specific as we could and give as much information as possible, because the more specific, the more authenticity would be attached to the story. So that I wanted to make sure and get all those appendices in the book.
It is a wonderful book. I can't say enough about it. I must say that I do believe that it is science fact. It has, parts of it don't maybe line up with truth. Like, I don't know about that Devil's Tower and things like that.
Oh, Devil's Tower, no, in the movie you mean?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, that was an invention by Spielberg.
Right.
They didn't land on the Devil's Tower, no.
Exactly. However, it has so much truth mixed in with the lie or the story.
Well, he had to do certain things for dramatic effect.
Sure.
He had to give Neri, the guy, in the main character, he had to give him that preoccupation with the Devil's Tower, and that was all for dramatic effect, and it worked very well. Very well.
It definitely made people reevaluate everything that they thought they knew, and it was certainly epic for the time, and I'm so grateful that it did come through personally, on a personal level, and I know that others are still talking about it today. When you talk about what's really going on out there, this movie constantly comes up, and the fact that you've written this book to give very clear understanding of what was behind the scenes is wonderful, and I applaud you for it. I'm so grateful that you did write this book, and I hope that if any other information ever comes to you, you continue to do that. I love the way the book was written. It's very easy to read and so factual, so...
Well, I'm glad you liked it, and it's getting good reviews, as I said. I've gotten over 121 reviews on Amazon. Most of them are very favorable, so I am pleased with the response and the reception that the book has received, absolutely.
Len, another thought that I had was back in Appendix 12, which is the back of the book, kind of hidden behind everything, is a framework for public acclamation, and it looks like this is disclosure. What are your thoughts?
This appendix constitutes complete disclosure. Anyone who reads this and still has questions or still has doubts about whether or not we have been in touch with intelligent life should read that one appendix, because in those 12 statements, this person who was very high up in MJ-12 supposedly admits to everything.
Mm-hmm.
Says intelligent life does exist on other planets. Craft not of human design or manufacture are operating in and around the land, sea, and air of Earth, and so on and so on. It's all there. It's complete disclosure. So anyone who has any doubts whether or not the government has disclosed, they have.
Right.
And they should read that appendix.
I agree. The crossbreeding of humans with more than one alien species. I mean, there's a lot in there that is...
It even states that crossbreeding of humans with more than one alien species has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Hybrid children and hybrid adults do exist.
Mm-hmm.
They have characteristics of both human and alien races. It's all there.
Mm-hmm. I think I've spoken to one of those hybrid children who could, remote view to the past. So I'm giving this a stamp of approval from me personally. I do believe this, and very interesting stuff. I do realize, though, it's hard to wrap your mind around it. It's hard to accept it. It's very, enigmatic. It's something that you just have to look at and say, wait, is everything that I've been taught in the past not true? And this is? It's one of those things where you start grappling with your own soul and the things that you believe, and it's very interesting stuff. So again, I can't applaud you enough for this book, and that chapter is disclosure. I agree with you. Amazing stuff.
Okay, thanks. I wanted to get that across before we ended the conversation, because it's easy to miss. A lot of people don't even look at the appendices. I just wanted to point that out.
Good, thank you. Well, I hope
anyone who's interested in my website, it's www.et-secrethistory.com. They can buy the book. They can click through onto Amazon or onto the publisher through my website if they would like. And I have a lot more information on my website as well.
Great. Okay, and so you also have a Facebook page. People can go on there and like you.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being a part of our show tonight, and I just can't say enough good about this book, and I hope that our listeners will literally get on Amazon and get this thing ordered, get it into your homes and into your hands. It's a constant read. You can't put it down. It's just one of those books that you hang on to. Thank you, Len, and I'm hoping that your cold gets a little bit better. And and thank you for being a part of Enigmatic Anomalies Radio. This has really been wonderful information that you've shared with our listeners tonight.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure talking with you this morning.
Thank you. Stay tuned for more from our sponsors on Enigmatic Anomalies Radio.
4,734 UFO sightings in 2007. 854 abductions by aliens or unknown species reported by American and British citizens. Press information about collisions with passenger aircraft and UFOs that has been kept from the public knowledge for years. And only one trusted source on information from some of the top UFO researchers in the world. Exclusive information that cannot be found anywhere else on the planet. Trusted, connected, accurate. TheUFOstore.com. Expand your personal library with fast shipping and instant downloadable information from the largest selection of UFO products on the internet by going to theufostore.com or call on the 24-hour, 7-day-a-week order line at 541-523-2630. The truth is out there, and theufostore.com has it.
Thank you for joining us tonight on EA Radio. We've had a wonderful time chatting with Len Kasten. Join us next time when we'll be talking with Andrea Perrone, author of House of Darkness, House of Light, the series of books which the movie The Conjuring is based on. It will be another riveting conversation. This is Teri Lynge, and thank you for joining us. Good night.